I believe that the man who lives like a free man in prison can get out of prison and live like a free man without all kind of structures and things to underpin him. In prison, there's several different types of people. The majority of men in prison are not capable of managing their own lives. They're not capable of managing their own emotions. We've done much research and written many reports and did surveys while in prison, especially in the CBU rehabilitation program. One of the things that we found was that about 70% of all people in maximum security prison are there for one of two factors. They are either mentally challenged, they have some kind of mental disability, some kind of mental defect, if you will. Most of them need to be on medicine, so on and so forth. The biggest majority, and some of them cross over, the numbers cross over when you start looking at the math. But many of them, most of us, I was one of those included, were emotionally illiterate. So when you think about the criminal, we tend in society to think about the criminal mind and the criminal element, especially violent crime. We start talking about or thinking in terms of guys who are sitting around just waiting to take advantage and to rape, rob, and pillage and to do all these things, when in reality, most crimes, most violent crimes happen out of emotional illiteracy. Guys cannot handle and cope with their own emotions, so they're illiterate in emotionally coping with the things that hit them, the crisis. I can tell you story after story of the guy who gets out and he's doing good, but he can't get a job, and so the pressures pile up, and the parole officer's pressing him about fees, and he's got child support that's built up for the 10 years he's been down, and so on. The emotional stress of that, which is a common thing in life out in society, when you add to that stress, that emotional stress of the burden of getting out, then the shock and awe of getting out into a society that may have been decades since you've been to, you add to that the fact that you really don't have the emotional literacy skills to deal with those kind of pressures. It's certain reentry, it's certain recidivism. That's what we found in maximum security prison. And I've personally been in 4 or 5 maximum security prisons, and that's my observation for all of them, not just the one where we did the research at. I believe that it is possible to acculturate inmates, especially violent offenders. I believe that it is possible to acculturate inmates to pro-social values, what society would consider necessary to function in society, but it's not probable, it's not likely, it's very rare, which I can expound on that.
You said something that was exactly what one of the things I wanted to touch on was when you were behind bars, one of the things that Mr. Terry was saying is that you almost forget there's a society in there that's very different from the one out here.
Right.
So he's mentioning, people need help with something as simple as we think it's simple, getting a driver's license, finding a job, creating a resume.
Right.
Do you feel like you lose that behind bars? Do you adjust to a new type of community? Why is it so hard when you get out?
There are, again, we're going back to that same notion of the two types of people you have in prison. Most people in prison, in maximum security, most of them are deficient when they go in. That's why they're criminal. Most people, there's very few criminals, people incarcerated for a violent crime, who do it what we would call a crime of passion, who have lived normal, happy, productive, law-abiding, tax-paying lives, but some crisis, usually finding their wives in bed with another man, something like that drove them to blast the place. That's a rare percentage, actually about 2%. Most people are in prison, all of them, the rest of them are in prison for either that emotional literacy or mental health, and sometimes that stuff's mixed. And then there's the variable of substance abuse, which most offenders use substance abuse to deal with their mental health issues, and that's something that's not really brought up or addressed even in the system. It is hard. It is hard for guys getting out of prison, no matter how long they've done it, if they were deficient when they went in. As it stands, the agency offers and the system provides very little by way of rehabilitation and by way of helping a person develop. They're there to warehouse, or they're there to secure and protect the public from the individual. They have have not really been able to find a model that works for them and for society. South Carolina is not alone. I've got family in the legislature in Tennessee and in other places, and we know through research, we know that all the states are struggling with this. They're struggling with throwing money, rehabilitation money, at projects and programs and it not producing fruit. They're struggling with finding a model that works. They're struggling with paying for it all. They're struggling with when do you stop throwing money and make the guy climb on his own.